edge in this case is, as you mentioned, like perhaps down to the individual hair salon level. So what was the actual idea originally that you would have the Formulate Labs Microfactory setup so small that it could fit into an individual salon?
Yes, we actually have one running in a salon right now. Yeah.
That's banging.
So we do have that, similar to kind of the food automation, right? Everyone's footprint specifications are all different. I think the world just isn't ready for that, or the adoption won't be like we originally kind of envisioned. Yeah. So where we're focused more so on is, these are systems being attached or nearby Amazon distribution centers, or in, much more regionally.
That's
that can spit out products. It's not a per bottle manufacturing, but say it's a 6-gallon batch or a 10-gallon or a 20-gallon batch at a time.
Okay, so frame that for me in terms of like in consumer. So let's say that I'm me. There's a brand called Bob's Bald Head Shine Gel. They work with Formulate technology. It's near an Amazon fulfillment center. I put in my order. Does that then kick off kind of a series of events in which the Microfactory nearest to my most nearby Amazon fulfillment center would then spin up and create that product just for me? Because you mentioned 6 gallons earlier, and no matter how bald I get, I won't need 6 gallons of Bob's hair goop. Or lack of hair.
So what we're doing today, so eventually, yes, the goal is to have an entire network of these where they get the manufacturing process happens, regionally or wherever it needs to. Today, what we do, so if you're a brand, typically the challenge that you're having, and I'm sure you have some in your audience, is working with, let's just take the US. US manufacturers are very archaic in general. The response rates, there's very high minimum order quantities. So let's say you have a formulation of 5 SKUs. Typically, you're hitting up against 10,000 to 15,000 minimum run sizes in order to get in with those manufacturers.
15,000, it's enough for 15,000 individual bottles of a thing.
Correct. Okay. To get a contract manufacturer is a private label contract manufacturing, which is exploding in the US because of this rise of, challenger brands or niche brands. And so what our platform enables today, we run it ourselves. We run our Gen 2 and we're working on our Gen 3 system. What that enables today is effectively much lower minimum order quantities and dynamic variability across, let's say, even a 10,000 unit run. So you have, every brand is looking for more SKU count, more variability, whether that's a fragrance change or an actual formulation change. So our ability to say, listen, you can run 10,000 units with us, fine, commit to that, but we can do 2,000 units of each variation across those 10,000 units with our automated batching system. And that's typically just unavailable.
So if I want 10,000 units and I have 5 SKUs, you guys can do 2, 2, 2, 2, and I can get all...
And sometimes less. Yeah, and sometimes less. Yeah.
Do the economics for Formulate change at even lower run quantities, or does the economics kind of net out to be the same for you guys on maybe a gross margin basis?
The goal is that the economics here are mostly driven by the raw material minimums and the raw material purchasing. So the goal is that our system is end-to-end automated such that the economics are virtually the same at any scale. And so we're able to offer incredible prices even at lower MOQ. And higher margin on our end. But typically the raw material side of it is what dictates, if you bring to us a formula that's got 25 different really exotic materials in it that are rare in, let's say, personal care, typically the MOQs that we receive on purchasing and connecting that material to our machine is actually what's going to drive your minimums.
So tell me about what you're replacing, because I've seen on your site, and we'll play some of the footage right now showing people your machine kind of out in the wild, but I don't have a good grasp on kind of, what is the current industry standard that is, higher minimums and more expensive and so forth. So can you just tell people a little bit about why what currently exists today is so inflexible compared to what Formulate has come up with?
It's very much, you're in the VC world. It's very much an overlooked category, which that's why I get so excited to talk about it. So what does the batching process look like today? Okay, so let's just take, like you're making a lotion, you're in a contract manufacturing setting, small batch. Small batch would be typically the largest size would be 300 gallons. So you got a 300 gallon vessel. Okay, so let's say there's 20 ingredients that go into this. The process takes 3 to 8 human operators over a 12 to 22 hour span. You've got, first of all, a lengthy cleaning phase to prepare all of the vessel itself. Then you're staging those materials, literally taking each material, weighing it, making sure you've selected the right material, logging it all, before then now dosing it into the vessel to start your mixing process. All of that is done manually. So you have this entire human process, and then you have other human beings that are checking on that work from a quality control standpoint. Then the mixing process starts. The mixing process can take many hours because you have heating, cooling, preservation systems maybe need to add it at a cooler temperature. Waxes need to melt at a higher temperature. And that's manually controlled, even though the vessels have, PLCs and knobs. That's still a manual process where you're monitoring it. And that leads to mistakes between where the starting point and now are 2 to 5% of the time, where you scrap the batch because of anything could happen. Either you dropped a bolt in the product, you dosed in something, the xanthan gum way too fast and it gelled up too quickly and you have to rework the entire batch, or a mistake was made.
What do you do with curdled lotion? Do you just throw it away, or can you save it?
A lot of times, it can be reworked a lot of times, but the rework process, there's a documentation for that. And then obviously chemists usually have to be involved to make sure that the rework, is done correctly. And then you're transferring all this liquid to a separate filling station through pumping equipment that has to be cleaned and everything else. So that whole process, it's the cost that goes into it is really the highly trained talent and the quality control that goes into it that doesn't want to make a mistake or can't make a mistake. And so that's what we're automating away. And that's the big barrier to, so, if you said, hey, I want to make some lotion, I want to create my own manufacturer, really all you need is a vessel, a mixing system and maybe a filler. That's, $10, $20, $30,000. But the problem is the training and the people and the quality control and the cleanup. And so that's effectively what our platform automates, and the core kind of batching and quality control. So we are also standardizing, if you transfer from one manufacturer to another,
it's all new.
It's all new, and there's always nightmares. You talk to any CPG brand that's done that. There's always, the first batch failed. They didn't heat it up. Because there's human beings managing these processes. Even though the recipe is documented, the batching process is documented, it's still not standardized. So there's a nightmare even in transferring from one manufacturer to another. So with our platform being programmatic, that's another thing we're trying to solve.
Tell me about how automated your current solution is, because according to the site, words like fully automated, API powered, cloud controlled sounds very, very modern. So how many fewer people do you need, and how far have you gotten that 2 to 5% failure rate down?
The current system, so we built 2 generations of what we call our production cells. The first 2 were focused more on per bottle personalization to power our brand. The Gen 3 that we're working on now is the scaled up version that does 10 6-gallon pails at a time, so larger batch size. I can actually pull up I kind of show you what that looks like. So we're building, it's very simple to understand. We simply are creating modules. Can you see the screen here?
I absolutely can.
Yeah. So these sit in free form, in free space. We're not using any sort of rigid conveyance. The goal is to have transport a vessel on version 1, it's a 6-gallon pail between stations. So powder dispensing, liquid dispensing, high shear mixing, or propeller mixing, and then induction heating, and all make it remotely controlled. And all of this is plug and play.
Who moves the things? Do me, Alex?
The idea is on day one, we're using a human being. But on day 2, we're partnering with, we've got a few potential partners for a rover to transport that vessel between those stations. So that's it.
I'm really surprised by this, because what you're showing on screen here is essentially one of those hoverboards crossed with a forklift.
Yeah.
And not a humanoid robot from Tesla or Figure or X1. Okay, so we're moving into essentially freestanding cabinets that can do the required chemistry, mixing, and steps. We're going to have a purpose-built robot that can transfer things to and from humans to start. I guess maybe the right question is, when does V3 come out?
So we're shooting to launch it in 6 months. So by October, that's our plan. And so right now we are actually taking on pilot customers running on our Gen 2 and kind of the early versions of our Gen 3. The pilot customers, we are effectively a contract manufacturer for. So we've got about 60 pilot brands manufacturing with us as kind of our testing ground as we cut our teeth as a contract manufacturer. And that began about 8 months ago. And so that's the plan. The plan is to kind of build it in-house, run it in-house, perfect it in-house, get about 100 active customers running on it, and then bring it to external facilities by the end of 2020.